So we now live in an era where we have superbugs, irreversible, indestructible, and certainly disastrous. And it's important that we reflect on how this situation arose. And there are a number of reasons which contributed to this spread of antibody resistance. First of all, the widespread use of antibiotics. Secondly, inappropriate prescribing by clinicians. And the classic example, which I'm sure you're all aware, mothers, fathers taking their children along to the general practitioners, and the kid has got some viral infection, but insisting that the general practitioner prescribes an antibiotic. And the harassed clinician, just to get rid of them, will usually prescribe penicillin. And of course, these are totally inappropriate for viral infections. Failure to control use by the general public. In many, many countries, you can get antibiotics over the counter, so there's no control of this. So that contributes to antibody resistance. Failure to complete a whole course of antibiotics. It's very tempting after a couple of days on a particular antibiotic, the infection clears up and you just don't bother taking the rest of them because they've got a nasty taste or you can't be bothered. And this encourages the development of resistance. And probably the most important one, the use as animal growth promoters. Antibiotics in low concentrations are added to animal feed as growth promoters. It's interesting, as well as those factors, concrete factors, there are also an attitude problem. And the Nobel laureate Macfarlane Burnet in 1962 said this: by the late 20th century, we could anticipate the virtual elimination of infectious diseases as a significant factor in social life. So, you might be bloody clever, but you can still say some stupid things. So, just because you got a Nobel Prize doesn't mean to say you can't be stupid. William Stewart, the United States Surgeon General in 1967, said we can close the book on infectious diseases. Infectious diseases are just not important anymore, of no significance. So that kind of attitude by sort of people in power, people sort of giving advice, helped to steer Big Pharma away from the development of new anti-infectious agents to far more lucrative diseases like chronic diseases, heart disease, for which there's no real cure, and you can sort of get people hooked on sort of drugs for years and years and years and years. These were far more attractive, and so Big Pharma started pulling out of antibiotic research and investing in other areas. And they should have been aware, all these sort of great minds should have been aware of Paul Ehrlich, the discoverer of Salvarsan, the first antimicrobial agent to be used in humans in 1910, said resistance follows the antibiotic like a faithful shadow. It's a great wisdom. The dearth of new antibiotics on the market can be seen from this slide here, which shows that there were 14 classes of antibiotics introduced for human use between 1935 and 1968. So tremendous interest in antibiotics. But since then, so the last 30, 40 years, there's only been 5 new ones introduced. It shows the lack of interest of Big Pharma in developing these agents. And if you look at the specifics of this, over the last few years, you can see that the number of new antibiotics has really decreased quite dramatically, and many of these are just variations on the old types of antibiotics. They're not new classes of antibiotics, they're variations on the old ones. We therefore need to develop new antimicrobial approaches because, for 2 reasons, the rapid increase in resistance to currently used agents and the lack of new antimicrobial agents in the pipeline. So we definitely need to develop new approaches.